In the late 90s and early 2000s, Canada's cinema landscape was defined by two major players. Rival corporations fighting for movie theater dominance in the Great White North. These two powerhouses were Famous Players and Cineplex Odeon. Of course, there were other competitors in the market, but in Canada, especially Western Canada, these two were the biggest name in cinemas. If you were going out for a night at the movies, odds are one of these two companies would be taking your money. At the height of competition, in the years surrounding the year 2000, Famous Players rebuilt its infrastructure with the introduction of megaplex-style cinemas and theaters. Bigger screens, better sound, luxury stadium-style seating, expansive food courts, and mega arcades were just some of the amenities found in these newly launched theaters. And arguably, the gem of the Famous Players megaplex crown was its Silver City brand theater located in West Edmonton Mall. In the late 90s, the mall was completing its Phase 4 expansion, which really wasn't a major expansion, but more so a reworking of the area just beyond the Deep Sea Lake. The area was in need of a facelift after the Hudson's Bay Company realized it just wasn't feasible to have two fully functional department stores in the same mall, and they closed their lakeside location. The area reopened around 1999, showcasing mega stores of Chapters and HMV, the latter of which had its Canada-wide chain closed just earlier this year. Phase 4 had a supersized arcade called Palladium, which spanned 2 floors. It also had a performance stage, and the new 3rd floor mega theater, Famous Players Silver City. The centerpiece of the newly launched Phase 4 was undoubtedly the Silver City Theater's main attraction, a 33.5-foot animatronic dragon. Perched high above the lobby, flanked by massive statues of King Kong, Yoda, and Batman, sat the attraction everyone came to see, the Dragon at Silver City. In 1999, the buzz surrounding this theater was near deafening. Nearly everybody couldn't wait to see the fire-breathing dragon. Of course, it didn't help that the first tickets to be sold at this theater were for the then upcoming Star Wars Episode 1 movie. Sure, it's easy to look back on it now, but back then, expectations for the new trilogy were sky high. At Silver City, every 15 minutes, ominous music would be heard throughout the lobby. This was a signal that the dragon was going to come to life. Slowly, the great beast's head would start to move, looking around its perch, high over the central concession counters. Soon, its head would turn more and more violently, and then it would flail its arms. The music would get louder, and lights would strobe around the great beast. Then, its jaws would open, and it would breathe fire from its mouth in 2 spurts. It was so hot you could feel it below, and if you were standing on the second floor landing directly in front of the IMAX theater, the heat was even more intense. To be honest, I'm surprised they let people stand up there at all. For the first part of its operating life, likely due to the popularity of the brand new attraction, the dragon would breathe fire every 15 minutes. However, it was fairly quickly scaled back to every half hour, which wasn't bad. You were never more than 30 minutes away from the fire-breathing dragon show. Then, in 2005, 6 years after Famous Players launched Silver City, its parent company decided to sell the chain. Cineplex became the owner, and Cineplex Entertainment became Canada's largest chain of cinemas. Today, it's the 4th largest movie theater company in North America, the largest in Canada. The theater was stripped of its Silver City name and was rebranded Scotiabank Theatre because, you know, nothing says imagination, adventure, and wonder like corporate sponsorship. It was shortly after this time that the Dragon shows were scaled back again, now to only 1 show every hour. It was disappointing because if you missed the latest show, odds are you didn't want to hang around for another hour just to see the next one. The reasons for this scale back were of course financial. The animatronic dragon was by no means easy to maintain. The attraction required a specialized maintenance team, which was brought in from the United States for both scheduled maintenance and incidental repairs. Still, the dragon's life continued, wowing audiences young and old with its hourly fire show. Well, for another 5 years anyway. Apparently, the software which ran the dragon was still running on Windows 95, and much of the documentation for maintenance and schematics had been lost over its 15-year lifetime, likely during the transition from Famous Players to Cineplex. Regardless, it had become more trouble than it was worth. So, in October of 2005, the dragon breathed its last fiery breath, and the attraction was turned off permanently. It remained a stationary decor, just like the submarines elsewhere in the mall, for about another 4 years. Then, it was finally announced. On July 14th, 2014, the Dragon was to be removed from the theater altogether. The Dragon managed to only last 15 years and breathed fire for just 10. As cleverly stated in the news headlines, the Dragon was slain by maintenance costs. The biggest and most blaring question was, why on earth wouldn't you just keep it there? I mean, if you look up at the ceiling today, there's nothing but a blank space. Nothing exists where the Dragon once lived. As luck would have it, I recently had a casual conversation with some of the management at Scotiabank Theatre. It wasn't specifically for the purpose of this video, but the timing was excellent. I was there taking photos in the ceiling, just for this video. He noticed me looking up and we started chatting. The question I had was of course one he had heard before. Why didn't they just keep it there? Well, apparently when it stopped performing its hourly shows, it no longer required maintenance. Not being maintained also meant it was no longer being cleaned. And it was getting pretty gross up there. It sat directly above the central concession stand, and while the vast majority of the grease and steam from the popcorn, hot dogs, and nachos were sucked up the ventilation system, it's impossible to trap everything. And without regular cleaning, it seems more and more grime started to accumulate on the Dragon. Also, remember that the Dragon wasn't built as a statue. It was made to be a moving animatronic robot, so its rubber skin needed to be flexible in order to move. And what happens to 15-year-old rubber on that scale? Well, over time, if it's not maintained, it starts to sag, and then it starts to dry out. Now combine the two issues. Old drying out rubber being covered with dirt, dust, and grease, all of which was dangling high over a busy movie theater lobby, full of patrons and, well, you remember that central concession stand. Once it became apparent that even small pieces of the dirt dragon were starting to come loose and fall to the ground, that was the final straw. The Dragon needed to go. So it, along with the King Kong statue for some reason, and the central concessions were removed completely from the theater. Luckily, Batman and Yoda still remain there today. Oh, and you remember that ventilation shaft for the central concession? That's still there as well, inside a somewhat out-of-place looking support structure leading up to an empty sky. One interesting tidbit about the theater. To go hand in hand with the Dragon, when the theater opened, a decorative silver dragon's tongue was erected along the staircase leading up to the theaters. This was a pretty nice touch, as it gave the area, at the very least, some unique flair. Accompanying the silver tongue in the area were some large fighter jets, hung from the ceiling. However, when Simon's opened in that part of the mall, rumor has it they didn't particularly like the look of the decor leading down from the theater, just outside their doors. Whether this was true, or it was the decision of the mall who, for some reason, decided to remove decor that must have been approved only 15 years ago, the silver dragon's tongue and the fighter jets were removed from the area directly above and beside the stairs leading to the theaters. It's just another blow to another part of the mall that was unique and interesting. What was once touted as a premier theater in Edmonton has now been all but stripped of any attractions or decor which might make it unique. The next time you're at the theater, stop and take a look towards the skies. The empty Starscape used to be home to one of West Edmonton Mall's defining attractions, the fire-breathing Dragon of Silver City. Did you get a chance to watch the Dragon in action? How do you feel about it now that it's gone? Let us know in the comments below. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and do us a big favor by giving us a like and sharing. Why not check out this video about the submarines at West Edmonton Mall? Or check out any of our other videos. Oh, and thanks for watching!